Hi guys. Let's continue with the topic. Remember last time I talked about combining theology and the psychology to understand the religion and beliefs and faith. And I'm actually want to add one point that to the most extent, the psychology is more useful for you to understand historical event, historical turn. Um, so here is the example. Last time I said two milestones that for American evangelicals that to come back treated Israel different. The first one is that 1965, the Roman Catholic decided revolt cause to say that we should not blame collective Jews for the death of Jesus Christ. But the bigger event is it comes in 1980. But what is 1980? By the way, 1980 is, I think that I checked the name. I think last time I pronounced that right. It's the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. It's crucial to understand it, to know the historical extent, the content. Okay, the historical background is that while before the 1980, we have something like an international Christian embassy in Jerusalem. Israel just won a major war. Of course, they had independent war in 1948, but also in 1967, I believe, there's a very famous called the Six-Day War. It's one of the best example, a textbook example that the war that went off so quickly, less than a week. Okay, there of course if you are religious, if you're Christian, you most likely will see that as a sign that the God is a God's call. The God is on the Israeli side. I would try to say that they leave God out of it, because like the even today's war, you don't want to read God just remember the two fundamental things that you must love God, you must love your neighbors. Okay, so that means that God will not endorse any war. You know, so that's the thing. And then you have to think about that right after 1976, 1967, the Six-Day War, and then it comes to the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. Right after many countries pulled off their embassies out of the Jerusalem, so they're kind of like a spiritual embassy, okay, to show their support. So I guess it's very important. That's why I say that the psychology is very important for you to understand it, is because I'm sure in many Christians' mind, they saw the victory, quick, decisive victory. By the way, Israel historically, it's accurate to say that Israel opened the first shot. Okay, of course they always say that the preemptive strike, but that's always subject to debate. But anyway, so I'm just saying. I heard somebody saying that throughout the history that Israel never fired, never launched the first, never opened the first shot. That's not true. 60 days is one of the example that Israel opened the first shot. Let's just respect the fact, okay? But anyway, so such a short war, many people would read that is that the God sent us a signal that to support Israel, because otherwise, how would you explain that such a quick victory? Complete landslide victory. There's no little doubt about it. Basically, if you believe in Marxism, Karl Marx would say no bullshit. It's just a weapon, because Karl Marx basically says that no God, right? So he would say that the only reason that Israel win is because number one, U.S. support, and number two, Israel did a very good job in intelligence, to find out what are the where the aircraft are, and so basically the in the Air Force, in terms of Air Force, Israel is totally dominated. There's no destroyed all the Egyptian Air Force basically overnight, and also Jordan. So that's decisive. But also, even that, by this time that we if you learn something from Iranian wars, then you see that even if your you know Air Force and even if your navies are all gone, you can still fight. Okay, but Egyptians obviously is not the Iranians, so there's a difference there. But anyway, so this is a very important thing. That's why I believe that you have to understand the psychology to understand in order to read the historical event. Okay. The second topic that I've been thinking about is that I've been thinking, all the time that is that you know, uh, faiths, religions are very good to give people hopes, which is very important, right? Just think about this. Many people in the South, if you think about this, the American evangelicals, majority of people are in the South. Tennessee, for example, 52% of people are evangelical you know so this one, how do we read that? I again following the same logic that using the psychology. A lot of the people, especially people in the rural, I mean, right now the South is not that you know the income gap is actually getting smaller from the north. Why? Because a lot of the U.S. Companies shifted to the south for lower land and lower labor, those kind of things. Um, but if you're living in the countryside, there may be a few spots for example, in the south, maybe, in terms of Tennessee, you may have like Nashville. That's probably relatively well off. But a lot of the rest of it, especially for people living in the south, they may very well. One of the reasons for them to follow the evangelical is that they believe that they see some people, getting rich fast, right? So they may say, okay, instead of selling my soul to the money and the fame, we're gonna, follow Jesus Christ's cause, and then to support Israel. So that's very important. That's why, remember last time I said that, Israel doesn't even have to appreciate it that much, because Christian Zionism is basically started the thing on their own. They recognize, at least in their mind, they recognize that Israel, remember the last time we talked about the sessionism, right? No, they're saying no. The supersessionism is not right, because we have seen the sign that Israel is very strong, defeated all their enemies, and one after another, more than multiple times. That must be a sign that God has sent it to us. So people are trying to read the God as the signs. Okay, so that's why we have to keep that in mind. So in that sense, that the people in the South, they see hopes. Okay, they see like, okay, by following Jesus Christ, by following the God's call, divine call in supporting Israel, we will be the chosen people by the God. At the day of judgment, at the end days. Right, so that gives them a hope. That hope is very important. Why? Because that matters in social stability. That means that not everybody will be competing to get the famous and get the rich. Instead, some people will say, okay, let's stay with God, let's follow the God. And then, while in this world I'm not rich and I'm not famous, but in the next world I will be rich in spirit. Okay, I will be the chosen ones by God. So that's one thing that's very important. So that's why I said that the religion and the faith is very important for giving people the hope. Okay. On the other hand, religion and faith are not that powerful in changing people's mind. Let me give you an example. I was laughing when I read in the Old Testament that when the Jewish people, the Israelis, the traditional Israelis, when their leader Moses went to the top of Mountain Sinai to get the Ten Commandment, and then the other people are doing that, they're sitting in the foothill. They, instead of worshiping God, they're worshiping the gold calf, you know, because they may not, they're not sure that whether Sinai, whether Moses will ever come back. So that's the kind of a thing that, you can see that the old mindset, pretty much all those years over the centuries, you may argue that they didn't change much. And the other even more important point is that, God is teaching basically two things. Number one, love God, and number two, love your neighbors, But look at the people do, very few people really follow that. I'm just, picking up Israel. I'm just saying that human beings are not very good at changing their behavior, even though with their faith. I went to churches. I see people. Some people are crying. Some people are shaking. That's very powerful, right? But not in terms of changing their behavior, like just because of believing God and then I change my behavior, become a new person. Um, that's less realistic. I would say what's more realistic is like parenting, because all humans have a vulnerable or flexible period of time when we are little kids. And then to another extent, not 100%, but to another extent, parents can shape what the kids will grow up to be, and then in the early age. So let's just stop here.